What's going on, YouTube? Bandit here, back again with another Diablo video. Today I've got my sexy girl wizard joining us to show off what she's been up to, the build she's been using. This is going to be a pretty fun cold build that I've been using with some pieces of gear that I had found. I wanted to make a build around. Those two pieces of gear, the Rimeheart legendary sword as well as the Frostburn gloves. This is going to be a good build that's going to apply a lot of chill and frozen effects for you to the enemy. To keep them slow and frozen and mobilized for a short time while your group can just unleash and beast and go ham on the baddies. Now this is going to be pretty gear dependent. You're going to need the Rimeheart for this build. You're going to need the Frostburn gloves for this particular build too. But the focus of this is going to be proccing the 10,000% weapon damage from the Rimeheart, as well as the chance to freeze chilled enemies with the Frostburns. So let's get right into the skills and gear that we're going to be using to get the most from this build. I'll just go ahead and rattle them off real quick, then we'll come back around to them and we'll talk about why they're important and how they're going to affect the build. First up, we've got Ray of Frost with Numb, Teleport with Wormhole, Frost Nova with Bone Chill, Ice Armor with Frozen Storm, Hydra with Frost Hydra, Black Hole with Absolute Zero. And into our passives, we're running Unstable Anomaly, Elemental Exposure, Astral Presence, and Blur. Now you're probably thinking, damn, this guy's an idiot. He's running a cold build, not even using Cold-Blooded. Fear not, though, because I was lucky enough to score this Hellfire Amulet that already had a Cold-Blooded passive rolled onto it. So we're going to be running 5 passes for this, but obviously you're going to run Cold-Blooded if you don't have a Hellfire Amulet that already has it on there for you. So definitely Cold-Blooded is a must-have. I was just fortunate enough I got to choose 4 different passives that I can use for this build. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our 4 skills that we'll be using and benefiting from the Frostburns and helping the 10,000% weapon damage proc for the Rimeheart. The Ray of Frost, if you haven't seen this used, I like to think of it as a cold disintegrate. It's blasting out a beam of frozen ice that's going to do 430% damage as cold, and slow movement speed by 60% for 3 seconds. And the damage from this is going to be increased by 405% every second, capping at 1240% cold damage. And more importantly then, the Numb rune is going to add a 10% chance to freeze enemies for 1 second, plus increase the slow amount by 20% to a total of 80% for 3 seconds. So that's pretty good there. That's definitely going to help your Rimeheart to proc that 10,000% weapon damage as you're blasting these guys with the Ray of Frost. You're just going to notice large chunks of their life coming off periodically, so definitely be running this. Alright, Frost Nova's up next, and it's going to allow you to blast nearby enemies with an explosion of ice, freezing them for 2 seconds, and the Bone Chill rune is going to do an additional 33% damage for you to all enemies who are frozen or chilled by the Frost Nova. So definitely try to keep that active and available to you as much as it allows. Ice Armor, granting us a shield of ice that reduces damage from melee attackers by 12%. Definitely worth having, since you're going to have to get a little more up close and personal with the bad guys than you may be used to using some of the other range skills and things that the wizard has. The Frozen Storm rune is going to give us a whirling storm of ice building around us, doing 80% weapon damage as cold every second. So I found this to come in handy for kind of like those stragglers that find their way to you while you're doing battle with like a bigger group or an elite or something like that. So they're just going to strike you, it's going to freeze them, and it's going to do 80% weapon damage. So it's going to be doing a little bit of damage to them until you can actually deal with them on a more personal level. And by that, I mean blow them to smithereens. Now onto Frost Hydra, it's going to breathe a short-range cone of frost, doing 275% cold damage to all enemies in the cone. You may be wondering why I'm using the Frost Hydra if it's not applying any chill or freeze effects, just cold damage. The answer to that lies with this wizard hat here, the Magistrate, which allows the Hydra to periodically cast a Frost Nova. Now this is great because you're going to cast your Frost Nova that you can cast, and while you're waiting on another one to charge up, you throw that Frost Hydra out there, and in my experience it's going to give you about 2 to 3 Frost Nova casts per turn of the Hydra. So that's great. That's just extra chance to freeze there, and extra chance for your Rimeheart to proc that 10,000% weapon damage. Now, the best skill to use in conjunction with the Frost Hydra and the Magistrate here will be the Black Hole with Absolute Zero rune, which will do not only the 700% weapon damage to all enemies in 15 yards for 2 seconds, but it will also increase the cold spell damage by 3% for 10 seconds. And the best strategy, I think, is to pop your black hole on a group of enemies, suck them in, and then cast your Frost Hydra right in the middle of the action. And it's going to give you that additional chance of freezing a big group and doing that 10,000% weapon damage. And you just can't really go wrong here. Now lastly, for our skills, we're using Teleport. And for a Teleport, you can either use the Wormhole rune, which is going to allow you to cast twice. If you do it again within 3 seconds of the first time you cast it. And Calamity, it's going to give you a short range wave of force after you teleport, and it's going to do 175% weapon damage as arcane, and it's going to stun them for 1 second as well. Both of these are great. Obviously with one you're going to get a little stun effect. It's not going to apply to your Rimeheart chance to proc that 10,000% damage, but it's going to keep them off you a little bit better for a little bit longer while you're handling business. And the other one's just going to allow you the opportunity to get out of trouble twice. So really, this is entirely up to you. Both of them are going to help keep you out of danger. So just pick whichever one of these you want based on your playstyle. I've messed around with both of them, and they're both pretty good. Now for the passives we haven't discussed, we're going to be using the Unstable Anomaly for that extra life. It's possible that you'll be taking more damage since there are going to be a lot of times when you're up close with the enemies like we discussed, especially with casting that Frost Nova. And you're going to be taking extra damage for that, and this is going to bring you back after receiving that Fatal Blow. And it's going to refill 45% of your maximum life for you as well. And it's going to knock the enemies back, slowing them for by 60% for 3 seconds. And it's got a 60-second cooldown on that. Elemental Exposure, this is a good one to use for the cold too. It's going to allow me to do 5% additional damage from all sources, which is just primarily cold for this build. So 5% extra damage for that is good. Astral Presence, this is going to be important to keep our arcane power up since we're not going to be using Prodigy or any other kind of arcane builder. So you're going to get 20 additional arcane power here, and it's going to regenerate by 2.5 per second. And when I first started using this build, I was running Prodigy, but I quickly realized, guys, that it wasn't needed with this passive. I really ran out of arcane power. It's going to be refilling for you constantly, and it's going to be giving you 20 extra. So you're going to have plenty of arcane power to use your Ray of Frost. And even if you do get low, it only takes a few seconds for it to fill back up. So don't worry about Prodigy or any of that. Go with Astral Presence. You'll be fine. And lastly here, to keep up with our defensive abilities, we're going to be using Blur, which is going to decrease our damage taken by 17%. Again, this is important since we're going to be getting up close and personal to cast that Frost Nova on the bad guys. Now for our gear, we're going to talk about this Light of Grace source, which is not only going to increase the arcane power that we have by 12, but it's also giving the Ray of Frost skill the ability to pierce enemies. So it's not just going to be hitting 1 or 2 enemies that are standing next to each other. It's going to be hitting all the little cowards and sissies that are hiding behind the ones on the front lines, and it's going to be doing that damage to them too. So definitely be on the lookout for the Light of Grace source to use that, because that's a great ability to use with the Ray of Frost. You'll see here I'm wearing the Ring of Royal Grandeur with a Bane of the Trap gem. And that's going to increase the damage to enemies that are under control and parrying effects by 15%. And that is going to increase with your rank. And once you get it up to rank 25, you'll gain an aura that will reduce the movement speed of enemies within the 15 yards by 30%. And in this case, we're going to get lots of that going on with all the freezing and slowing that we're using. And this Bane of the Trapped is going to proc that 15% extra damage for all of the skills that we're using in this build that are going to chill or freeze by any chance. Over here we've got Leorix and Yet with the Gogor of Swiftness. And this one is at rank 6, and it's allowing 56% chance on hit to gain swiftness, increasing your attack speed by 1% for 4 seconds, and that'll stack up to 15 times for you. Ultimately, with that increased attack speed, you'll be doing more damage, and then at rank 25, you'll gain a 1% cooldown reduction per stack, so you have the possibility of reducing your cooldown time a fair amount. Now, there isn't a ton of cooldown for these skills, but the faster you can cast the skills, the better, if you ask me. You'll see here that I'm also wearing a 2-piece Talrasha set, so I can get that extra 5% cold damage from the 2-piece bonus for that. I'm also wearing the 3-piece Firebirds for that 500% or that plus 500 intelligence, and for that second life, that's going to allow us to revive with the 4-piece bonus once we take fatal damage. So 2 lives there. That's going to be good for you running those higher greater rifts. and it's going to really work well with your unstable anomaly to keep you alive for as long as you can. As far as gems go, I've got a cooldown reduction gem in the helm, and then I've got 3 resistals in the chest and some intelligence gems in the pants. Obviously, you're going to want to assign those according to your stats. The Reaper's Wraps here, like I said, you probably won't have to worry about running out of Arcane too much, but if you do get low during fights with Elites or Rift Guardians, these are going to fill your Arcane up just a little bit for you, by 30% for these ones here. I guess I'll show you here the 2 bad boys that are pretty much making this build. We've got the Frostburns here. Your chill effects have up to a 36% chance to freeze instead of slow. And the Rimeheart, 10% chance on hit to instantly deal 10,000% weapon damage as cold to enemies that are frozen. I know I talked about them, but I just figured I'd show you the precise stats that they carry. I've only ever found 2 Frostburns, and one was intelligence. I got a dexterity pair as well, and I've only ever found 1 Rimeheart, and I was sitting in my chest probably for weeks before I even realized what it was, and lo and behold, here we are with the cold build. So I'm glad I realized what it was and its potential, so that I could bring you this video. Now let's move into Paragon. For our core, we're going to assign the movement speed accordingly, then we're going to max out our arcane power, then we're going to put the rest into vitality or intelligence depending on your needs. Offensively, we're going to max out crit hit damage, then move on to cooldown reduction, and then you'll see here I've started building up my attack speed. For defense, we've got resist all first to stay alive, armor second, again to help keep you alive during those ferocious battles, and then we're going to put the rest into life. And for utility, we're going to try to build up our life on hits to keep that health up while we're hitting the bad guys. We're going to have resource cost reduction next to keep the blasting the Ray of Frost as long as you can. You know, it works nicely with the Astral Presence. And then we're going to start filling up our area damage, I guess. Here, obviously, we're not going to worry about gold find because that's pointless with this unless we're hunting for gold, which we are not. Alright guys, well that's it for this cold build video. If you want to stick around, I've put some footage together to kind of highlight this build in action. If you liked the video, you learned something you didn't know, please hit that like button. Also, if you have any other suggestions for gear or skills that you've been using with your cold build or your wizard, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. I'm very active in the comments, so there's a chance that you'll be hearing from me as well. Also, too, if you haven't already, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'm always trying to put out quality videos and good content for you guys. And I'm 5 away from 500, so that'll be a nice milestone for me to hit. I guess that's it. Until next time, y'all stay beast and peace out.
Two of you. The odds are getting better and better.
Yeah, maybe you cut down on that fried chicken, huh?
Go ahead. Run. We'll be watching for you.